We are live. So, first off, happy Memorial Day, right? I mean, an incredible holiday, a day of taking time to honor and remember the people who have sacrificed, given the greatest sacrifice. So, first take a moment as we talk about culture. The culture that's set by these men and women that have again sacrificed everything.
Yeah,
We couldn't be more grateful, right? So, moment
yeah.
of honoring and memory there. We wanted to talk about how creating culture, right, can help people want to rise up. One of my favorite examples with culture is actually using the Navy SEALs and the culture they've created. And
Hmm.
I think they do an awesome job of creating radical consistency, right? They have real clarity on what it is that they're about, right? They know that they're all about teamwork and making sure that they create trust. And so they emphasize that through a variety of ways, through storytelling, through the mottos or the sayings that they have, their little maxims. They have the way that they bring soldiers in, the training. I mean, every part of it just keeps going back to the radical consistency of we know that we're all about teamwork, trusting each other, and so when they go out and they start recruiting soldiers, they're looking for recruits that have the character strengths like integrity, right, teamwork, honesty, all these things that are consistent with their mission, their values. And then as they are training, right, they actually create these training opportunities and they reinforce and reward. They make sure to really put up and reward those that are showing great, amazing teamwork. They course correct and make examples out of those that aren't. And they have a saying with no man left behind, which is just a radical kind of example, right? That is an awesome testament to we stand by each other no matter what.
Hmm.
And there's these amazing stories that we hear of heroism. And so you just really see this incredible sense of consistency around this culture. So that's I think an example. And there's a couple of other companies that do a phenomenal job that just know what they're about. Their leadership is bought in. Everything keeps coming back with consistency. And when you have that level of consistency, right, it allows people to stop worrying about the uncertainty of things. They're able to focus on making higher level decisions, and people are able to rise up and meet the culture, right? They want to rise up and do their very best to kind of meet those stories, to create their own version of that. It's amazing to see, right? When you see a company and you see someone that really gets culture right, how all of a sudden you create an environment that people rise up to do their very best. So we're going to cover the other end of that too. What happens with people when they have an inauthentic culture, when they're not really sure how to set culture? It's kind of haphazardly done. But Mr. David Osk, what do you have to say about this topic?
Though, as you were talking there, the one of the things I thought of is just this idea that there are those, like you mentioned, companies or organizations, right? Navy SEALs, things like that, that their culture is legendary. Like it is so set apart that there's literally movies made about it, and even inside of those movies, right? It's that culture, like you just said, that no man left behind thing. It's like, I mean, that is something that gives the movie goosebumps. You know what I mean? It's not
Yep.
just a bunch of guys going out there and kicking butt and mission accomplished. The human, I guess, the human paradigm, the relationship paradigm, is front and center. While they're accomplishing a mission, right? And it's because of that relationship that the culture is, well, has any value at all. And so I'm totally tracking with you there. I think quite often internal culture, whether it's our own internal culture or a company's internal culture, kind of gets kind of blown by really quickly, and that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, one of the reasons why we talk about this, obviously we focus on identity and we do a lot of work with leaders and really establishing radical clarity so they know exactly who they are, which this informs their decision making, right? When you know who you are, then it makes the decisions that you set, the habits that you want to create. You start from a place of clarity instead of trying to
Yeah,
back your way into it, right? Like I'm picking
yeah,
habits, but why am I picking this habit versus that? How am I creating strategies for success in these things? Well, culture really is just, group identity. And so the more that a company starts or an organization starts from a place of radical clarity, this is what we stand for. These are the decisions that would flow out of that. These are the types of people, right, that we want to draw in, the types of clients we want to create, the type of experiences and feelings that we want to create in that. It really it allows everyone to do their best work, because you're removing so much ambiguity and uncertainty, right?
Right.
So it's amazing when you start from a place. And then, of course, making sure that whatever it is that you're setting in that identity is authentic to who the leaders are, the people who are kind of setting the tone. That's really matched up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love what you said at the end there regarding the make sure that it's authentic to the group, because quite often you have these ideals, that we're kind of striving for, but there's a big disconnect, with regards to, hey, here's where we are, here's where we want to go, and then a real fragmentation, internally with those people that are leading the way, right? They would say one thing but then do another, which absolutely destroys, of course, what they're saying. So I think the fact of the matter is I think there are a lot of leaders, honestly, out there that think that, for instance, in a small company, that fun, and not that can't be kind of a core value, honestly, because it's one of mine. I love fun. In fact, I want to make everything fun. But
Likewise.
At the same time, yeah, that's right. I mean, I remember you talking about that for yourself a lot. But what's fascinating is the fact of the matter is I think that quite often when companies and leaders try to create culture, in a company, they're like, well, how can we make this more fun for our employees? That type thing. And it's kind of a, an extrinsic, like you say, type of an influence, as opposed to, something where the employees, if you will, are looking at their leaders thinking, man, these people know exactly who they are, exactly where they're going and why. The desired, the virtuous impact that we want to have on our customers, our cultures, or anybody else that comes into our, our sphere of influence. And it's that type of thing that's really contagious. And it seems to really, there's some staying power there, as opposed to trying to, beat this same drum of, all right, well, let's have fun and everybody stay happy and that kind of thing. That's just kind of vague.
Yeah, I've heard you give the example before about, leaders and CEOs or whoever it might be that's trying to set some of that culture, and they'll do things like pizza night, right? Or going bowling, but it's really inconsistent. It's not necessarily drawn out of their values, right? Like there's just a sense of kind of randomly putting things together, and there's not a great level of consistency. It's not strategically, kind of put together. Putting together a really authentic, virtuous culture. First off, the benefits of doing so have been studied, and we know that not only do you tend to create a work environment that people love to come to, right? You tend to have less sick days. You tend to have less employee turnover. You tend to have a whole host of outcomes that are great, not just for the work environment, but the bottom line absolutely goes up, right? Virtuous companies far outperform they're non-virtuous. That doesn't mean that there's not companies out there that are toxic, have really unhealthy cultures that aren't profitable. But I promise that they are underperforming what they are capable of. Right? I mean, I think we've talked about maybe on other other shows about the it's not the Mendoza line. I'm blanking right now. The Mendoza line's in baseball. Losada line. Thank you. Yeah, Losada. And so they studied, right, to look at this idea of interactions. And so how many positive interactions, your boss tells you great job, gives you affirmation, they reward you, reinforce all these things, right, where you feel really great, versus those moments where you feel micromanaged, you feel criticized, things that just don't make any sense. And so 3-to-1 was that ratio that was necessary just to have kind of a functional workplace, work culture, right? Anything below that, and you started to see people dreading coming to work, right? You tended to see more employee turnover than average. You start to see some significant consequences to that. But when you get up to 5-to-1 or 6-to-1 of those positive to negative ratios, it's amazing how all of a sudden you will see not just a functional workplace culture, but you will see a thriving work culture. And there's just no way that happens by chance. You don't do that, right? Just by random chance. It takes a tremendous amount of thought, but it's really about, taking the time in advance to put in the thought on that and having predetermined those things, right, that represent what you're all about. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I like that. I like the idea that you're not going to stumble into success. I mean, it doesn't matter what, what success looks like for you, unless you're intentional about that. Nobody's going to stumble there and let the wind blow you over towards success. And what's even more fascinating is if that were true, right, it would really take a lot of the meaning out of my desired impact, right? The joy that I would experience by saying, hey, here's a mountain over here, or this is a valley we're going to cross together. We're going to get there, and here's how we're going to do it. If I have chosen to lead a company, right, or lead a people group of any sort, I want to do it to the fullest extent of my ability, but I want to do it with a sense of purpose and meaning, and kind of have the full weight of who I am, the things that are meaningful to me, the expression that I would give it as the leader of whatever that moment is. And I think that because of that, then when we get to the other side, right, it's, man, I don't know about you, but when I execute on something like that and we succeed, it just feels really great because my heart was in it, and I had like you said, a predetermined view of success and how we're going to get there based on what I view as important and virtuous.
Yeah, love that. We talk a lot about true north, and that idea being that there are certain principles that you stand on. There's certain things that are so important and central to who you are and what you stand for, either personally or in your business. And truthfully, as a leader, those things should not be separate, right? I just talked to someone the other day, and I said, have you ever done any core values work before? And he said, well, I have for my business, but I've never done any personal core values work. And I get that's not an uncommon thing to hear, but those two things should not be separate, right? Who you are as the CEO, you're setting the tone, right? You are setting the vision. And so you need to be clear and make sure that those values are integrated into the business that you're creating, right? So that helps to inform then who you hire, the people, what gets course corrected, the clients you take on. I've had a couple of clients where they have clients that they work with who are considerable clients, as far as how much money that they're making from, but they just get absolutely burnt out, resentful, drained, and they carry that into their family interactions, right? And so and they feel stuck because on one hand, I can't let this go. This person's, paying half of my total or revenue right now.
Right.
But when I've gone through and said, was this person a good fit for your values? And we go through their personal values, and they say, no, it didn't fit in any one of the five. Wow. It takes some talking, right? Because there's a lot of scarcity mindset and things like that. But when they set those clients up, make sure that they're referred to someone that they're well taken care of, handle it in a way, right, that's done kind of above board. But all of a sudden they let go of that baggage, right? And they start to then move and take on clients that are a great fit. Their profitability goes up, their happiness goes up, their leadership improves, they have more energy to actually invest, right? And they are able to get a lot more done and accomplished, but somehow still have a ton more bandwidth left in life to enjoy life. Does that make sense?
Man, I love that you brought that up. Quite often, I know for myself when my internal culture, right, isn't clicking, when I've kind of just kind of veered off into the ditch a little bit. Well, what happens, right? If I'm not acting, inside of my own authenticity, man, I'm swayed by other people's, definitions of success for my life, right? I'm swayed by my time is spent doing things that are really just distractions and not really dialed into exactly, really what I've, like you said, predetermined to be about. And of course, if you extrapolate that across a company, if the leaders are fragmented, if the leaders are not dialed in, to that their own version of authenticity and showing up in a way that is meaningful to them and saying no to things that are just distractions and that kind of stuff, well, guess what happens? That starts filtering down to everybody else. And then, of course, like you mentioned earlier, you literally have a return on investment that you can quantify, in a dollar value. That is, obviously in a household, that's pretty easy to look at that on a macro and a micro basis very quickly on any given month. But boy, you look at that inside of a company and see where trends are, where, like you mentioned, lost time and things like that, and just expenses start to rise when people start saying yes to things that are really not important.
Yeah, the trickle down effect of that is profound.
Yeah.
You think about sometimes even the culture I set in my family. The more I start off every day knowing what it is that I want to reinforce with my kids, right? Knowing the stories I want to tell that's consistent with the culture we create, right?
Yeah.
Reinforcing kind of those values, those character strengths. Uh, it removes, because there's so much that happens in a day that emotionally can sway me this way or that way, right? And if I don't have preset, then a lot of times the way I'm interacting with my kids gets reinforced. It's
Yeah.
just based off of what I'm going through that day and my struggles, and so it can create a ton of inconsistency. And if you think about people in your life where they had great trust, right? Trust comes from predictability. When there's a sense that, hey, I know that this person is always honest with me, right? So I don't have to worry about when they're telling me that this problem happened, whether they're
Yeah.
feeding me a line of BS, right? I can relax and know and have great, confidence that they're telling me the truth. And it's amazing when you have trust, how that just allows you to, kind of relax and into yourself, and you start to make better decisions, as
Yeah.
opposed to when you're around someone and you never know if they're telling you a lie, if they're telling you the truth. You never know if they're maybe doing things that, really have lack of integrity. It creates a constant pit, for at least for me, right? That sense of that tightness, that anxiety. And instead of being able to focus on make my highest level decisions, right,
Yeah.
my brain is stuck in my amygdala, and I'm making very emotional based decisions, again, in the moment, that are undercutting our profitability, they're undercutting how I'm
Yeah.
interacting with my clients, with everyone. It affects every aspect of how I'm relating to my business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. And that's probably been a couple of years ago, but we ended up creating a family T-shirt that says Tmosque on it. And back to the course correcting thing, right? You often use that analogy of when a jet takes off in New York and heads to LA, whatever. They're only really on course, true north, right, to their destination,
Yeah.
just a few percent of the time. They're constantly getting back, because you've got variables, you've got wind blowing, and all
Yep.
types of influences and so on, storms and whatnot. And so one of the things that we do in our family quite often when we're course correcting, which is every single day and many times, right? I course correct in
So
here,
true.
but as the Lisa and I lead our family, right? We're constantly course correcting. So
Yep.
one of the things that I often say is, hey guys, I think we forgot that we're Tmosque here. If one of us loses,
That's
we
good.
all lose. And hold on a minute. We don't tear each other down. Of course, it's usually Parker and Kate arguing about something, as teenagers often do. But we just forgot here. So let's remember what's really important to us, because we've already predetermined those things, that we stand upon, our convictions. And it's amazing, by the way, the power of speaking a virtuous word into a moment of chaos, right?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, it's there's literally power there, because someone has defined that this is important to me, right? In our family, we really love each other. That's all there is to it. And from day one, right, we're hugging each other. Hey, I got your back. What do you need today? And again, there's chaos there. We're human, but at the same time, when I just walk into the room and say, hey guys, I think you forgot that it's Tmosque here. You can just tell there's a shift in the room, and everybody's like, oh yeah, you're right, and so on. But I think that really, again, you whether it's a small business or a large business, right? If I were to say team, Acme, whatever the company is, right? If the employees in that space know exactly what that means, it's not just team. Okay, it's the team. We're all the team. Okay, whatever. No, 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 no. There's a series of words and phrases and things that
Yeah.
are virtuous, right? That hold an eternal weight to them, not just
That's right.
randomness, that carry weight. And I think it's really important to understand that, boy, when you start speaking those words into a room, when I speak those words into my own mind and heart, right,
Yeah.
things shift because they're
Yep.
powerful. That's all there is to it. This isn't just random gobbledygook.
Yeah. Love what you're saying. It reminds me. So, yeah, Seema, I think is, if I'm getting her name right. But love what was written here, and saying how creating the image, right, of having a virtuous company can cost a lot of money, but the actual act of creating, right? I think that a lot of people are more focused on creating an image,
Oh,
and,
yeah,
and as opposed to actually putting the time in to create the culture, right? And the
right.
difference, and the benefits of doing one versus other are outstanding.
Vastly different.
I love using you're using the word virtuous quite a bit, and I think that's such a great word. So I want to take a moment just to define, right, that a virtuous culture is one in which you clearly, the leadership, the overall kind of the environment, it's clear that the leaders care about the employees, right, and not
Yeah.
just as profit producing people or assets, but they genuinely care about their well-being. There's a
Yeah.
sense that the company cares about its relationship with its clients and cares about their overall well-being too, right? That they really invest, they take the time to get to know, to speak
Yeah.
virtuously into them, and
Yeah.
they care about the community. And so there's generally a real sense, like we've talked about with authenticity, right? I think authenticity is one of those words, and virtue also, unfortunately, that's gotten hijacked a little
Yeah.
bit by, I've seen it online in ways that has become counterproductive. But true authenticity has a sense of social responsibility, right? That when we are being our most authentic selves, we understand that we have responsibility to the people we love and care about, to do good, right? And to strive
Yeah.
to being our realest, truest selves to those moments, not just the one that cares about our image, not just the one that cares about, whatever emotionally is going on, and our right to respond in ways that might not be right, but you might have a right to it. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We've obviously, through your course too, right? We've helped hundreds of people, begin to create that internal culture. And you're like like we said on the outset, right? You're not going to stumble into that. It takes work. You have to start, obviously, you're so good at holding people's hand, as it were, and into that space to ask the right questions so that you understand what is absolutely front and center and valuable. Thus the word core values. What does my core value? It's, kind of different. We all kind of, hold things in a different balance. And yeah, I absolutely real quick, again, one of the things that I love that you say is you use that term authentic exemplar. And oftentimes when I hear you say that, I think of this idea that if a friend of mine is, if I hold somebody in that high regard, right, and
Right.
they pass away, if I can't get a plane ticket, I'm hopping in my car, and I'll be happy to drive 1,000 miles because it's that type of a person that had such an impact, right? Well, so what does that really mean? It means that their internal culture, their sense of authenticity, their sense of purpose and meaning was so powerful, right? You can talk about, a tree and chocolate and a piece of steel. All right, those are just kind of nice things in our world. But when you start talking about courage, genuineness, kindness, that's the stuff that people, literally die for, right? That's the stuff that we're literally fighting for, and to hold those things higher than the rest of just kind of everything else. It's kind of a weird way to say that, but I love to make those stark contrasts because it's those authentic exemplars. And I sure hope that, I'm one of those. I'm striving to be that man, right? Because I want to have,
You're living it, dude.
well, thanks, but I want to be genuine. I want to have, a real sense of clear purpose, especially in my family, right, and in my own life, and in any other room that I'm in, as opposed to the opposite, which is what, I actually have a list here I'm kind of looking at, right? There's this sense of when you're operating, when your internal culture just stinks, you're more quickly angered, you're fatigued, you have apathy, you avoid situations, you're isolating. And I feel like the internal culture will set the course not only for your life, but for your family, and of course your business. And there are literally return on investments, both financially and otherwise, that cannot be ignored. And the proof is in the pudding, as it were.
Yeah. And I love that, right? As we talk about the internal environment versus the external environment, this is true whether we're working with an individual, right? You got to do the inner size first. And then all the outer stuff starts to get so much easier, so much more impactful and effective. Same thing with a company, right? You need to do the inner size first, right? Get clear on what it is you stand for. Get clear on your guiding principles. Get clear on those values, right? The mission statement, those things. Make sure there's radical consistency
Love
between
that.
these things.
Yeah.
When I have clear guiding principles that are guiding me each day, when I know my values, when I've internalized them in a way, I actually start to trust myself more, right? I start to
Yeah.
relax into, I know the right way to go. I know what decisions I need to make. When I make those decisions, I
Yeah.
feel more alive. I feel happier, right? I'm more autonomous. I have more
Yeah.
freedom. All these things start to soar. And so, and you think about all the variety of things in a day that can knock you off course, get you to, stuck in a place of self-doubt, starting to question, what did that person mean by that? Or, why am I not, I've looked on Facebook, going on more vacations with my family, all these different things that very easily can create internal chaos, confusion, uncertainty. So how do you respond to that? How are
Yeah.
you able to kind of rebalance and get into a place of stability, to get to a place of certainty, and have a foundation where it's like, all right, I know the right way to go, and I can relax into myself to know that I'm ready to meet this challenge. I know what challenges to take on and which ones to say no to. When you start to trust yourself more, it's amazing how you just organically, right? You make your very best choices. You choose the right people for the right position, right? You know what to do in difficult moments. You're able really to have clarity and prioritize effectively in real time. It's amazing what happens when you do that. So same thing as a business. It allows everyone, when everything's super clear and you've created that level of structure, it creates an environment where people loosen up. People start to relax, and they know the right, kind of things to do because it's
Yeah.
being led, right? And this isn't, we're not talking about perfection, but we're talking about course correcting to that which is predetermined, because you have this virtuous culture, right? And everybody cares about each other, and everybody's kind of putting each other out to support you. It's really incredible how things get so much more fun,
Yeah.
but also so much more profitable.
You
Does
know,
that, does that make
in
sense?
oh, love it. And in companies, right? My father-in-law said one day, he said, when we were talking about building a house, he said, David, he said, all it is hard work and solving problems. And I'm like, all right, I can do that. But here's the
Right.
funny thing. When fear takes over, right? When you have that sense of uncertainty, well, what is it that starts to really suffer? Creativity. So when you think about a company, that really needs to be solving problems on a real-time basis,
Yeah.
literally, like, several times a day, you've got people that are like, I'm not sure how to do this.
Yeah.
If they're not, if their internal culture is one of fear and uncertainty, and they're just, a big question mark inside their head and heart, right? Guess what's just plummeted? Their creativity in order to even solve
Yeah.
problems and to do
Yep.
them quickly. So I don't know about you, but when I'm feeling, that sense of fully alive, right? The question mark is gone inside my heart and over my head. And whether it's a problem in business and, things like that, I find that I tackle those obstacles with a sense of energy and a creativity that, boy, there's such a stark contrast when I'm feeling, that sense of fragmentation and questioning and all that kind of stuff. And so the course correcting back to that internal culture of what I've predetermined just amplifies all of those really strong, good, courageous, creative places in my life that I want to operate in.
Yeah. So true. So powerful. I love using the example, right? I know we've talked a little bit about a culture as it relates to family, culture as it relates to, just leading yourself, culture as it relates to leading your business. So I'm going to use one more about leading a sports team. And you think about those coaches that have become iconic, right? Because of the level of consistent success that they've been able to lead their teams to.
Yeah.
John Wooden, I'm out here in Southern California, so he's certainly one that stands out as maybe the greatest coach of all time. It's Phil Jackson. We come up with a number of coaches, but one of the things that's consistent with all those that have had, consistent success, not just, a one-time championship, but they've been able to have multiple teams and bring
Right.
different egos, personalities. One thing that's consistent with all them is they have a strong sense of identity, right? They know exactly who they are as a coach, and they know
Yeah.
exactly the identity of their team. And you often hear sportscasters, right, that when a team starts to struggle, that they've lost their sense of identity, right? Maybe that they were a defensive-oriented team that was scrappy, that made it hard, for the team to score, whatever it is, not maybe giving the best examples here, but they're no longer playing to who they are. They've
Yeah.
lost that sense. They're having an identity crisis, and now everybody's second guessing, right? They're not playing with the fluidity. They're not trusting each other, and their performance starts to tank.
Right.
As opposed to, like, you look at, I'll say Phil Jackson, a little more familiar with some of the Lakers, but he had this triangle offense, right? He had a predetermined sense. But even more than that, he was the Zen master, right? He was the one that cared about his players and had very specific, customized books that he would send to, personalities as different as Jordan and Shaq and Kobe. And so he poured into them, right? And he had this incredible wisdom and the sense of being able to manage egos in ways that was incredible. And he was able to bring calm into moments that were chaotic. And so, once he was able to figure out who was the right players for his type of system, he married a defensive, philosophy that was perfectly matched to the triangle offense.
Yeah.
And then they put players in the right roles. They knew exactly what players were the best fit for each within this identity. And then it empowered each player, right? He got optimal buy-in from each of those players, and he allowed everybody to thrive, to rise up and play their very best. And I think he ended up winning 10 championships. Is there 10 or
Yeah.
11?
Yeah.
That's what happens when you are a leader at that level. You know exactly who you are, right? That empowers you to know what roles that you need people to go into, who's the best fit for those roles. We've got, an exercise that we have people go through an organization called a role crafting that basically makes sure you're putting people in exactly the right positions to thrive, where they're operating in a place of autonomy, doing their very best work.
Yeah.
Does that make sense in regards to how identity
Yeah.
looks? And
Yeah, and I think you use the phrase when people know who they are. Well, I think part of that too is who who you aren't, and
yeah,
and I think that quite often, even in my family, right? I think I don't know about you, but quite often my the things that I lack in, man, they're front and center, right? It's like, oh my gosh, and I feel like I'm bombarded quite often. I think that's just kind of human nature too. We're like, oh man, I can't do
oh yeah,
this. I'm not good at this. All that kind of stuff. But here's what's fascinating is when we start a company and people start to follow us, as it were, right? We hire them and they get on the team to help us complete an objective. They got on that team and started working with me, as it were, right? They need me and I need them. And it's the combination of those hearts and personalities and intellects and so on that can, not always, right, but that can come together in a way that's really powerful,
yeah,
if you are operating in that that place of authenticity and so on. And same thing is true for being a dad, right? Parker and Kate, they don't need a different dad. They need me. They need me,
that's right.
the true
That's
me,
right.
the real me, to show up. And it's amazing. Parker and I were talking yesterday about the word harmony. Of course, we're kind of a musical family, right? So you've got 1, 3, 5. I mean, you've got literally like a harmony,
Yeah,
it sounds beautiful. But then when you
yeah,
introduce some of those notes in there, right, that are dissident and they got that rub to them, and we hear music like that, right, in horror movies and things like that. There's that sense that that doesn't feel right. But when there's harmony, in our relationships and inside of us, right? Boy, it sounds beautiful. It feels right. It causes goosebumps, as it were, right? It's amazing on that internal culture creates something really, really beautiful.
yeah. It's so true. When you interact with someone, right, that's really in that place of that they're operating at a high level of internal alignment with their external, what they're doing, so they have that harmony. It's amazing, the impact, right? You talked about the authentic exemplars. I think you even mentioned the idea of a funeral, right? When there's someone that's had that
Yeah.
level of impact on you, right? You will make sure that you show up. And the few people that I've seen and really have labeled as true North exemplars, authentic exemplars, right? You know, unfortunately, 3 of them have passed away, and all
Mm,
3 of them had a massive turnout to their funerals. The legacy that they left,
yeah.
right, is something that will be felt for generations to come. And it's just when you're doing the work that's important to you, right?
Yeah.
When you've clearly defined why, you're intrinsically motivated to do it. You're doing it with purpose and passion. You're doing it because you genuinely care about the people. You think about the teachers who've had the greatest impact on you. You think about coaches who've brought out the best in you, right?
Yeah.
There was just a different, and sometimes they can be disciplinarians, right? There's not a one size fits all way to do this. You
Right.
know, some teachers, some coaches, some leaders, some business owners are really fun and dynamic and charismatic.
Yeah.
Others are, introverted and they're really reserved and very calculated, right? And so I think figuring out who you are and how to play to those strengths, but to do it in a way so that you come alive, so that you have
Yeah.
the greatest sense of joy and, impact and meaning, so that you're able really to feel like at the end of the day that I had exactly the impact I wanted to have, right? That I know that I made a difference. The real me matters.
Yeah.
Me showing up knowing that, like, makes me show up with just a different level of energy and intentionality.
Yeah.
It's really impactful. I mean, that's obviously, I hope it comes off that we are excited. We get passionate about this stuff because we know the difference. We know we've seen people come alive in the process of working with them from a place of being uncertain and filled with confusion and self-doubt, and they're greatly undermining, their own potential and their own impact, to all of a sudden where they start owning it, right? They have integrity. They're operating from a place of being connected to their emotions, their heart, their mind is fully aligned, and they're having their greatest impact. It's incredible. Even people
Yeah.
who thought they were good leaders before realized that they weren't leading, right? They just were technically great at what they did, and
Yeah.
people were following because of a title. But all of a sudden, when they got clear and started leading from a place of authenticity and true north, doing that, their level of leadership went up by degrees of exponential growth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's so great. Yeah, that sense of, it's funny, Andy. I quite often I feel like doing some of this deep work, and identifying these things for me, and I think you probably would agree, if it's not unto and into a life of deeper joy, right, I'm out. But the fascinating
I'm
thing
with
about
you.
this, yeah, the fascinating thing about this is the deeper that you know, dig, right, to identify these things, identity, those things that are just authentic, right, what's authored in me, and you operate out of those places, well, I don't think there is another path toward deeper joy, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're literally like you're operating in a place of disharmony with yourself, and you're going to feel and hear that internal rub in a way that is like just scratching a chalkboard with regards to your courage and resiliency and joy. But the opposite is just true, right? When you start acting in alignment with those things that are absolutely true to your nature, well, then all of a sudden the music gets better, and it's like, oh man, let's turn up the volume here and get going.
Yeah, I love. I talked about a little. My favorite psychologist, kind of as we go through theories of personality, was Maslow and his hierarchies of need, right? And at the very top of that hierarchy is this idea of self-actualization. And in my belief, right, that the top of that pyramid is really that's true north authenticity. When you are operating in the truest sense of who you are, that is the fullest of your potential. And I love. He had a saying that if you plan on being less than you're capable of being, then plan on being unhappy all the days of your life. I mean, if that's
Mm,
not a call to action
yeah.
to say, let me figure out exactly who I am. There's two movies that I saw, by the way. I think I referenced this, who part of the trailer or part of the movie had a line. I think Thor is one of them, where he's saying, I need to find out exactly who I am. And in
Yeah.
the Top Gun movie, I heard that Maverick says something along the lines of, about leadership, needing to discover who he is as a leader, that who I am drives everything else. And anyways, just thought that was cool
Yeah.
and clearly a reference, right? That if you want to actualize all of what you're capable of doing, if you want to have to thrive, then you have to start from that foundation of knowing who you are, right? And there's a very specific language when you start to dial it in a way where you can describe it. I know these are the things that are true, right? It doesn't matter what's happening externally, doesn't matter what people are saying. I can stand strong on this, that God designed me in this way, that this is what God
Yeah.
has put in me. He's authored these things in me.
Yeah.
And so it allows me to be confident. I can tell you what they mean, and I can tell you why they're important to me. The roots that you dig, right, in that moment, they run so deep that it doesn't
Mm,
matter the weather that comes. You can have all kinds of adversity and challenge, and you will stand strong in that moment and
yeah.
be able to lead people effectively, right? They will feel your strength, they will feel your tenacity, your resilience, your sense of
Mm,
clarity, and they will want to jump on board, and they will want to do their very best in that presence. So
man. Man, great topic today.
yeah,
Mm,
would love it. If anybody has a question. It's such an important topic, especially right now. I mean, this world, it needs more true north environments, right? We need more people setting culture, that doesn't just signal that, hey, we got the appearance or illusion of being good, but there's actual true good being done, right? There's a sense of that, hey, this isn't just about profit. It's not about just, it's, you can tell that there's authenticity behind the actions. So we'd love to engage anyone if it's just having a discussion, if it's somebody wanting to share with us, right? We're curious and always learning ourselves. But this topic is so important, and we love to engage. So
yeah, and then also, your website, of course, is ag-thrive.com. And if people want to jump in on our next cohort in order to dial these things in for yourself, for your company, and so on, reach out.
All right, brother. Happy Memorial Day again.
Hey, you too.
Man, love these topics.
Yeah, thanks.